The week's end top stories at NBR. Kathmandu releases a trading update. The Digital Economy and Communications Minister has a problem. The highest paid entertainer globally for 2021. And there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR This Week. The latest business stories from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz, and a look back over the week's top stories from our daily video business news bulletin, NBR Today. It's Friday, February 11th. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks again for joining us. The government is considering what it could do if any of the shareholders in Kiwibank parent company Kiwi Group Holdings Limited sold down their stakes. The New Zealand Superannuation Fund and ACC bought stakes off New Zealand Post in 2016, with the super fund paying $263 million for a 25% shareholding and ACC $231 million for 22%. That left NZ Post with a 53% shareholding in the company. The 2016 deal valued Kiwi Group Holdings at $1.05 billion at the time. Under the deal, the shareholders could not sell their stakes outside the existing shareholders for 5 years. That deadline passed in October last year, and now there are suggestions one of the parties might want to sell at least some of their stake. The ACC would not confirm its intentions, but the super fund indicated it would retain its investment. NZX and ASX-listed apparel retailer and wholesaler Kathmandu has released a trading update confirming the heavy impact of COVID-19 on its first half, with 11,696 trading days lost due to pandemic controls. Group sales for the 6 months to January would be $405 million, it said, compared to $410.7 million in the previous corresponding period. However, it said underlying EBITDA for the half would be $9 to $11 million, down from $48 million a year earlier, representing a COVID-related profit impact of $35 million. Digital Economy and Communication Minister Dr. David Clark has a problem as the government's digital strategy is being finalised. Its release is expected in a couple of months. Clark still does not quite know how to measure the sector. The minister joined NBR political editor Brent Edwards.
So we want to advantage that sector, but how do we know how well we're doing? I've commissioned work actually through Stats New Zealand to get better metrics around our tech economy. The ones we've got at the moment are a bit clumsy.
Digital Economy and Communication Minister Dr. David Clark with Brent Edwards there. Sir Peter Jackson has been named as the highest paid entertainer globally of 2021 by Forbes magazine, with an estimated income during the year of US $580 million. Jackson has since sold his 60% stake in the production company he co-founded, Weta Digital, to Unity Software, with the whole business selling for US $1.625 billion in cash and shares last November. Forbes had earlier estimated Jackson's stake in the Weta sale translated to US $600 million in cash and US $375 million in shares, very likely pushing him into billionaire territory. The magazine noted that Jackson had become only the third person in history to become a billionaire by making movies, behind Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. The developers behind the luxury Pacifica apartment complex in downtown Auckland are planning to split the tower's unsold $40 million penthouse into 3 to attract a wider pool of buyers. New Zealand Sotheby's international realty agent Penny Milne is now marketing the penthouse sale, and she joined the NBR's Andrew Bevan.
Obviously, COVID and pandemic lockdowns have not helped the overseas inquiry, which has been very steady and quite strong at a number of times, but really waiting for borders to open to bring that market into New Zealand to be able to work through that process of purchasing. It's time to broaden it out for New Zealanders.
New Zealand Sotheby's international realty agent Penny Milne with Andrew Bevan. The full details of those stories and more are at nbr.co.nz right now. I'm Paul Brennan. This is NBR This Week. A look back now at the week's top NBR business stories from Tuesday. Gardner Hopkins suspension to be appealed. The 2-year suspension given to former Russell McVeigh partner James Gardner Hopkins after he was found guilty of professional misconduct for exploitative sexual behaviour towards young female summer interns at the firm will be appealed. Last June, Gardner Hopkins was found guilty of 6 charges of misconduct by the tribunal following 5 incidents at a Christmas party in 2015 and a 6th at a staff team building party the following Monday. He was then last month suspended for 2 and ordered to pay costs of more than $100,000 following a lawyers and conveyancers disciplinary tribunal decision. A permanent strike-off had been sought during the penalty hearing, with the resulting 2-year suspension labelled disappointing and dangerous by the Aotearoa Legal Workers Union. It's NBR This Week, the week's top business stories from NBR's daily video bulletin, NBR Today. From Wednesday, Pushpay insider trading case. The Financial Markets Authority has defended it taking nearly 4 years to file court proceedings against 2 people for alleged insider trading. The market watchdog said today, Wednesday, it had filed the proceedings alleging insider trading in relation to the sale of shares in Pushpay in mid-2018. The FMA alleged that one person used this material inside information to advise or encourage another person to trade in the lead-up to the market announcement, while the other person was also involved in the conduct. The FMA has taken more than 3 years to file charges in relation to the matter. A spokesperson, however, noted that the timing of bringing the case was in line with insider trading cases in overseas jurisdictions, providing examples from the US, Australia and the UK, where charges came 4 to 5 years after the alleged trading occurred. It's NBR This Week, the week's top business stories from NBR Today. From Thursday, more funding needed for City Rail Link. A warning that Auckland City Rail Link will need more funding has been repeated to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee at Parliament today, Thursday. Already costing the city and the government as co-sponsors $4.4 billion, the project will require additional funding, said Sir Brian Roach, who has recently stepped down as chair of CRL's board. And he said, "We do not, as at today, Thursday, have any sense of the scale of that, but Treasury in their Crown accounts released prior to Christmas noted there would be costs arising." Roach was responding to a question from National's transport spokesman Simeon Brown, who pressed Roach and CRL CEO Sean Sweeney on whether they could come to any sort of number representing the extra cost. This is NBR This Week. Now we're up to Friday's top story. Lawyers engaged in a class action over huge losses from the collapse of NZX-listed Intueri Education Group more than 4 years ago turned up at the High Court this morning, Friday morning, to thrash out details of document discovery in the long-running case after what Zane Kennedy, representing Intueri investors seeking compensation, described as interminable negotiations. The opposing legal teams were not far apart on the interlocutory issue, the court heard. The matter involved an application nominally by the plaintiffs but effectively by all parties for discovery documents from a third party, the liquidator of Intueri. The liquidator's database contained an estimated 1.3 million Intueri documents. Documents subject to privilege can be withheld from the plaintiffs. No one in their right mind is going to sit down and read 1.3 million documents, Kennedy said. Find the full details of those stories and more at nbr.co.nz right now. This weekend at NBR, Saturday, Fact or Fiction, Brent Edwards and Grant Walker debate the week in politics, while on Sunday, Neville Gibson's book review looks at extremists who lurk in the shadows. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks for watching and listening to NBR This Week. Have a great weekend. Join me again from Monday from around lunchtime for the morning's NBR trending stories, then again from 5:30 for another NBR Today.